Chapter 1. Everything in its place. There were 1,323,476 items inside the small brick ranch on Honeysuckle Lane. More or less. All those items had been carefully curated by the homeowners and deemed impossible to throw away. Annie Abernathy had lived there most of her adult life, going on 40 years now, with her husband, Milt. They'd raised 3 children there, braving the coldest New Hampshire winters. She'd devoted her days to keeping a house the rest of the Abernathy family could proudly call a home, a place they could feel comfortable in. And she had succeeded. While the children were growing up, she'd taken care to never throw away the finger paintings and perfect 100 tests they'd brought home, the treasures they collected. They were all important. She'd been raised to believe there was a place for everything and everything in its place, especially things of worth, sentimental things she couldn't bear to part with, and every piece of art her offspring created, every award they won, every piece of clothing that had once touched their skin, it all meant something. It was all worth something. She liked to think she knew where, among the piles, each thing was. But lately, things had gotten away from her. Some she hadn't been able to reach since Penelope, their youngest, moved out over 13 years ago. The house had never been fancy, and had been rather crowded when the 5 of them had been living there. On busy mornings they lamented the 1.5 baths. From the moment they'd moved in, she'd talked about replacing the dark wood paneling in the living room with bright white walls. But over the years, those complaints had fallen by the wayside. Now it was just Annie and her husband Milt, and the house was crowded not with people, but with things. Many, many things. They never entertained anymore, never bothered to decorate for the holidays. Renovations were the last thing on her mind. The first thing on her mind that afternoon was the starving children of Haiti. As she sat next to Milt on the worn velvet sectional, holding his hand, she watched the newer television perched atop the old Zenith console, sandwiched between her collection of Hummels, precious moments, and other assorted and sundry items that had been packed like Jenga bricks into the glass curio cabinet, leaving not an inch of open space. She didn't notice those things, though. She only had eyes for the grave-faced reporter delivering the news. "Most of the children here haven't had clean water in years." Annie gasped and put her free hand to her mouth. "Oh, sweetheart, we should adopt one." Milt nodded along, as he usually did, whenever she suggested anything. "Symbolically, obviously, not actually. Like in that commercial. I think it's only 59 cents a day." He patted her hand. 59 cents a day adds up. "Well, I know that, but it's still not that much considerin'." She looked toward the stained cottage cheese ceiling, doing the mental math. $200 a year. Milt smiled broadly, his eyes twinkling, laugh lines showing. "Is that all? Sign us up, then. Maybe we should have 2. They could be siblings." She loved how easily convinced he was, how his priority in life had always been to make her happy. That was why they'd survived 48 years of marriage. And above all, children had always made her happy. 2. Yes, I will. That would be nice. The news switched to a report on a child murder in Manchester, just the next town over, but it might as well have been in their backyard. The world was getting all too violent lately. The news had never disturbed her so much before.